Welcome back to ACC Today here on Sirius XM ACC Radio, Channel 371. Good to have you with us. Excited to talk to our next guest. Big win over the weekend. Notre Dame beating number one Duke 13-8 on Saturday. Kevin Corrigan now in his 33rd season as head coach at Notre Dame. He's the longest active tenured coach in Division I men's lacrosse. He joins us now. Coach Corrigan, it's good to have you on our show. How you doing?
I'm great, Chris. Thank you for having me on.
When you hear, I'm sure you get introduced, or maybe not, introduced frequently, longest active tenured coach in Division I men's lacrosse. How does that make you feel? Does it give you a warm fuzzy? Does it make you feel old? How does that feel?
You mean besides old? It makes me feel good. I've still got a job and a good place to go every day.
Yeah. Well,
another
milestone.
I'm sorry, Chris. I didn't mean to talk over you. I feel lucky is really what I feel. To have been able to be at a place like Notre Dame for 33 years, the hundreds of unbelievable kids that have come through here that have been lucky enough to coach. I mean, that you can't feel anything but fortunate about that.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of the ways you stay at a place for 33 years is a lot of winning. Your win on Saturday against Duke gave you 3-11. You passed Bob Schillinglaw, who was a coach at Delaware, makes you the winningest head coach at a single program in Division I history. Again, I wonder what that means to you, Coach, the winning milestones that you are reaching at this point in your career.
Well, I mean, it honestly not something I really think much about. But when somebody talks about it, I think about the hundreds of kids that I was lucky enough to coach while they were winning all those games. I haven't scored a goal in over 40 years. So, it's certainly not something that I'm doing as much as what they're doing. So again, I feel really lucky about that. I also feel fortunate because, my dad started his career as a coach, and he always said his favorite job was being a coach, and how much he loved the opportunity to coach, and still with all the things that he ended up doing, felt like it might have been the best job he ever had, and so I feel lucky to have been able to do it all these years.
Yeah, we were going through some stuff last night, Coach, in prepping to talk to you, and I was looking at something you said after Notre Dame joined the ACC in 2014, and you were talking about the chance to play the best schedule in the country, and you're going to play similar schools to Notre Dame, and there's real no impediment to winning a national championship. I wonder, now that obviously you've been in the league for some time now, I wonder if your feelings back then about competing in the ACC have proved true.
100%. There's nothing better. We're in a string of playing 6 straight ACC games right now. And, it's funny. Somebody even in our department said to me the other day, "Oh man, it must be tough to go through that gauntlet." And I'm like, this is what you do it for. This is the challenge and the excitement of playing in games of this caliber are why you want to be involved in this. You're testing yourself and testing your team and their ability to bring it every week and compete with the best and win. And it just doesn't get better than that as far as I'm concerned. And there's no better league. This may be right now the best league that's ever been in lacrosse because of all 5 programs having 5 years of students. And that's kind of an unprecedented thing. So you see it in the strength of our conference every day.
Yeah. And I do want to talk about your team this year, the win this weekend, but your career fascinates me. We were going through some stuff. Did we read correctly, in your first few years at Notre Dame, you played mostly a D3 schedule. There wasn't a whole lot of funding. So did you recruit graduate assistants to work as security guards? And you guys were traveling mostly by bus? I mean, was it that paltry back in the day?
Well, I'm going to say this: we've never had a more Division III schedule than a Division I schedule, but our schedule isn't what it is now. But that was one of the things I changed when we got here. We went from playing a regional schedule, which did involve a lot of Division III teams, to Division I schedule. Because again, if you want to recruit good Division I players, you have to play Division I teams, and that's what we did within a couple of years. We had eliminated all the Division III, and it was a different world then. There was a lot more mixing of those two. We had zero budget for assistant coaches. We had zero budget for a lot of things, and so I was getting my guys jobs on campus. I was recruiting grad students. I was lucky enough that Jerry Byrne, who's now the head coach at Harvard, Jerry came. He had just graduated from UMass. He came out to get his master's at Notre Dame. In fact, we helped him, through that process and recruited him to come out here and coach for a couple of years. And his first day of MBA school, he walks back in the door, and he has two guys with him, Mark Vita, who played goalie at Harvard, and Kevin Lawler, who was an attackman at Holy Cross. And he said, Coach, I think we have a staff now. So that was it for the next 2 years. It was those three guys who showed up at 3:30 every day when they finished school, and me. And we had a blast. It's never been more fun than it was then. And those guys are all still lifelong friends. Jerry, as you know, probably came back and coached another dozen years with me, up until, 2 years ago. So, it was different world, man, in so many ways. But listen, I grew up in a house where when I was a kid, my dad was the head lacrosse coach, the head soccer coach, and the sports information director at UVA, all at the same time. So, that was an even more different world, right?
Yeah, no question, Coach. And now we're putting Twitter handles on the backs of jerseys, evidently. So we've come a long way. We've come a long way. All right, your team this year, you guys have now held 5 of your 7 opponents to its season low for goals. That would include Duke this weekend. You held them to a season low 8 goals. You did a great job on Michael Sowers from Duke. What is the identity of your team this year, Coach? Is it the defense?
Certainly it starts with the defense, and our close defense is a part of it, but our defensive midfielders are outstanding, and they're a big part of it. And the fact that we have some two-way middies on our regular midfielders to keep us from getting trapped and having to play, 5-on-5 or with a guy who doesn't know what he's doing down there, and that's a big part of it. The selflessness of our offensive group is a part of the identity of this team. We've had, I think 4 or 5 different people score more than 3 goals now, and nobody seems to care who gets the goals, or you know what I mean. As long as we're playing well and creating good opportunities, I think they all know, that everybody looks good, and it could be anybody's day on any given day if we continue to play that way. And I think, another part of it that I just got to say is that our guys like each other. They enjoy coming out here every day, and it's really a big part of who this team is. They just enjoy being around each other, and maybe it's something to do with the COVID thing. I mean, there's nothing better. Listen, once we step between the lines, every afternoon, all that COVID stuff goes away, and it's just those 2 hours are maybe the most pure 2 hours that we all get in our day, and I think that's maybe they have a real appreciation for that too.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the COVID. I noticed that it was a pretty good atmosphere. It looked like you were almost, pretty good capacity there in the stands. We saw some onlookers lining the fences outside the stadium there. How was the atmosphere for the game?
Well, it was good, but it was considerably more muted than it would have been if we hadn't had that. I think, we would have had 5,000 people here. And I think we all would have enjoyed that, but it was great just to have some people in the stands, because obviously we started the year with nobody. And we're slowly, building up a little bit. So yeah, it's definitely a strange environment. I'll say this, it works, good and bad. It would have been great to have them here the other day, but I think when we went down 4-1 to Syracuse, I was pretty glad that there weren't 15,000 people in the Carrier Dome that day. So, got to take both sides of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No question about that. Well, you guys, I mean, like you beat Syracuse there on the road, gives you back-to-back games over top 5 teams in the country. You've now won 3 straight games against the number 1 team in the USILA poll. going back to 2015. Is there something to that, Coach? I mean, you guys are against the best teams. Notre Dame is had a nice little run here of coming out on top.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. Honestly, I don't think we ever said their ranking a single time last week. There's enough to worry about with them without worrying about what other people think of them, and where they're ranked. So we don't ever talk about that stuff. It's funny. It's just not something in our consciousness at all. I'm sure the guys, I know they're not oblivious to it or unaware of that or anything, but it's just not something we ever talk about. We just talk about the challenge of playing that team, and that seems to keep me busy enough. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. Kevin Corrigan's the head lacrosse coach at Notre Dame, joining us here on ACC today. Roster management, Coach, coming into this year. Obviously, last season canceled. I mean, how difficult was the offseason, the fall, and trying to figure out exactly what your team was going to look like here in the spring, given all of the things, pandemic-wise, you had to deal with?
Yeah, once we had made the decisions about who we were going to bring in, it really was pretty easy from there. And I got to give the people at Notre Dame credit for that. There were a lot of people from the very top of the leadership of our university who made, in my mind, very courageous decisions very early to say that we're going to bring students back. We're going to live in our dorms. We're going to go to our classes, and we're going to participate in athletics. And then a lot of people below those people who work their tails off to make it happen every day. And because of that, we were able to have a relatively normal fall of, it took a little longer than usual, but we were able to get our practices in and have the opportunity for the team to get to know each other and to bond with each other and everything else. And so, I really feel very fortunate that we were able to do that, and that's been the approach that the university's taken, because that was not an easy thing. Looking back now, it's easier to say, oh, sure, yeah, that's what you did. But boy, at the time they did it, they put their necks out there, and I really give them credit.
Yeah. Notre Dame's got next weekend off. They got a rematch with the Blue Devils in Durham, 7 Eastern on April 22nd. Game will be on the ACC network. Coach, congrats on the game this weekend, on the win. I've been looking forward to talking to you. You are a legend in the game, and it was great to get a few minutes with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate being with you.
All right, Kevin Corrigan, head coach, Notre Dame men's lacrosse, 33rd season. Now the longest active. If you just joined us, we asked him at the top. He's the longest active tenured coach in Division I men's lacrosse. And what a win this weekend that was over number 1 Duke, 13-8, holding them to their lowest point total of the season. We'll continue here on ACC Today right after this.